My child, something important just happened, and the person you love needs you to hear it before this feeling in your chest fades and you talk yourself out of what you already sense is true. Right now, in this exact moment, you are being reached, not through a phone call, not through a message, but through the quiet, unmistakable pull that brought you to press play on this video. That pull is not random. It is a signal. And what I'm about to walk you through will explain exactly where it's coming from, why it arrived now, and what you need to understand before this moment passes you by. You felt something shift today, didn't you? Maybe it was subtle, a heaviness in your chest you couldn't explain, a thought of them arriving out of nowhere and refusing to leave, a strange restlessness that made you check your phone more than usual. Maybe it was stronger than that. A wave of emotion that caught you off guard in the middle of an ordinary task, a memory resurfacing with a clarity that felt almost deliberate. Whatever form it took for you, it happened because something real happened on their end, and the ripple of it has already reached you. Stay with me, because this message was never meant for just anyone. It was meant for you, right now, at exactly this point in your story. To understand the full weight of what just happened, you need to understand what has been quietly unfolding in the background for longer than you may realize. This did not begin today. It did not begin this week. What is surfacing right now is the result of something that has been building steadily, invisibly, underneath the surface of ordinary life, for a stretch of time that has felt, to the person you love, both endless and strangely fast all at once. There has been a version of them that the outside world sees, functioning, present, going through the motions of work and relationships and daily obligations without any visible sign of disruption. But underneath that version, there has been another, quieter truth taking shape. A growing awareness of you that they have not been able to shake, no matter how many times they've tried to distract themselves with other things, other people, other priorities. This kind of awareness does not announce itself loudly at first. It arrives in small moments, a song that reminds them of a conversation you once had, a scent or a place that triggers a memory tied to you, a quiet ache that surfaces right before sleep when the noise of the day finally goes silent. Over time, these small moments accumulate. What starts as an occasional thought becomes a recurring pattern. What starts as a fleeting feeling becomes something closer to a constant undercurrent, running beneath everything else in their life. This is what has been happening to the person you love. They have been carrying you with them, quietly, persistently, in a way that has grown heavier and harder to ignore with each passing week. Alongside this growing awareness, there has been resistance, and understanding this resistance is essential to understanding why what happened next carries so much weight. People do not easily act on feelings this significant. The bigger the feeling, the higher the perceived stakes of expressing it, and the higher the stakes, the more elaborate the excuses become for staying silent. Maybe they've told themselves the timing isn't right. Maybe they've told themselves you wouldn't feel the same way, or that saying something would risk a connection that already feels valuable exactly as it is. Maybe they've simply told themselves that if this feeling were meant to be spoken, it would have already found its way out by now. These are the kinds of quiet negotiations that happen inside a person who is carrying something they haven't yet found the courage to voice. And these negotiations do not resolve themselves overnight. They circle, they repeat, they exhaust the person carrying them. This has likely been the private experience of the person you love for some time now, an ongoing internal argument between the part of them that wants to reach toward you and the part of them that is afraid of what that reaching might cost. But here is something crucial to understand about feelings this persistent. They do not simply fade with time the way smaller, more superficial feelings often do. If anything, they intensify. The longer something significant stays unspoken, the more pressure it builds. The way water rising behind a dam does not disappear simply because it hasn't yet broken through. It accumulates. It presses harder against the barrier holding it back. And eventually, if the feeling is real enough, if the connection is deep enough, that pressure reaches a point where the barrier can no longer hold. That is exactly what has been building toward the moment we're about to discuss. And very recently, that barrier reached its limit. This is the heart of everything, so I want you to really sit with what I'm about to share, because it explains precisely why this message is reaching you now, at this specific moment in your life. In the recent hours, something shifted decisively inside the person you love. Whatever internal negotiation had been keeping them silent finally resolved itself, not through some dramatic external event, but through an internal reckoning that happened quietly, likely without anyone else even noticing. This is how truly significant emotional turning points tend to unfold, not through fireworks, but through a private, unremarkable-looking moment where something inside a person simply decides, with sudden and unmistakable clarity, that it can no longer stay hidden. Picture it honestly. It may have happened while they were alone, doing something completely ordinary, driving, cleaning, lying in bed unable to sleep. It may have been triggered by something small, a passing comment from someone else, a memory that surfaced unbidden, a moment of stillness that finally allowed the noise of daily distraction to quiet down enough for the truth underneath to become audible. And in that moment, whatever precise form it took, they stopped asking themselves whether they should let this feeling be known. They started, instead, asking themselves how. This shift, from should to how, is one of the most significant turning points a person can experience in matters of the heart. It marks the difference between a feeling that remains theoretical, safely contained and never tested, and a feeling that has become a commitment, something the person carrying it has decided, consciously or not, to act on. Once someone crosses this threshold, the feeling stops being something they merely have. It becomes something they are moving toward expressing, even if the exact words, the exact timing, and the exact method are still uncertain. This is precisely where the person you love stands right now. They have made the internal decision. The hesitation that held them back for so long has not vanished completely. There will likely still be moments of doubt, moments of second-guessing, moments where the old fear tries to reassert itself, but the fundamental orientation has changed. They are no longer simply wondering if they should reach toward you. They have decided that they will, and that decision, once made at this level of sincerity, rarely reverses itself completely. It may pause. It may stumble. But it tends to move forward, because a truth this significant, once acknowledged internally, becomes very difficult to fully suppress again. Now, you may be wondering how something happening privately inside another person's mind and heart could possibly reach you the way it has. This is where you need to understand something about the nature of connections built on real depth, real history, real resonance. Emotional shifts of this magnitude do not stay fully contained within the person experiencing them. They generate a kind of energetic disturbance, a ripple that moves outward, and that ripple tends to travel most powerfully toward the people most closely tied to the source of the feeling, which, in this case, is you. This explains everything you've been feeling recently, even the parts that haven't made logical sense. The unexpected wave of emotion that arrived without warning. The persistent thought of them that kept resurfacing no matter how many times you tried to redirect your attention elsewhere. The dreams that felt more vivid than usual, carrying a texture of meaning you couldn't quite name upon waking. All of this has been the echo of their internal shift reaching you, traveling along a connection that has always existed between you, whether either of you has consciously acknowledged its full depth or not. This is not a metaphor. Connections built over real time, real shared experience, real emotional investment, create genuine resonance between two people, a kind of attunement that operates below the surface of conscious thought. When one person's internal state shifts dramatically, particularly around something as significant as deciding to finally express long-held feelings, the other person often senses it, even without understanding why. You have been sensing it. And now you understand the source. There is something else worth exploring here, something that adds further weight to why this particular moment matters so much. In the time surrounding this internal shift, the person you love has very likely experienced their own set of confirming signs, small, seemingly unconnected moments that reinforced the feeling they were already moving toward accepting. Perhaps a conversation with a friend circled unexpectedly back to the topic of you, without them bringing it up directly. Perhaps something reminded them, with startling specificity, of a moment you shared together that they hadn't thought about in a long time. Perhaps they simply experienced a period of unusual clarity, a quiet stretch of time where their usual doubts went silent long enough for the truth of their feelings to become impossible to ignore. These kinds of confirming signs function almost like a chorus of agreement surrounding an internal decision that is already forming. They do not create the feeling was already there, built over time. But they reinforce it, making it progressively harder for the person experiencing them to retreat back into denial or silence. The person you love has very likely been receiving exactly this kind of reinforcement recently, each small sign adding weight and certainty to a decision that was already taking shape beneath the surface. So here we arrive at the center of everything. Something important did happen. It was not loud. It was not visible from the outside. But internally, decisively, the person you love crossed a line they had been standing at the edge of for a long time. They moved from privately feeling something toward actively deciding to let that feeling be known. That decision now exists inside them as a kind of quiet momentum, waiting for the right moment, the right words, the right courage to become visible in the shared world between you. And that waiting period, the space between an internal decision being made and its outward expression finally arriving, is exactly where you find yourself standing right now, receiving this message. Let's talk about what happens from here, because a shift this significant sets consequences into motion, and understanding those consequences will help you recognize what's unfolding rather than being caught off guard by it, or worse, missing it entirely because you weren't watching for the right signs. The first thing you should expect is a change in the way the person you love behaves toward you, even if the change is subtle at first. Someone who has recently crossed the threshold from hesitation into intention often begins acting differently in small, easy-to-miss ways before they act differently in big, obvious ones. They may reach out more frequently, even about things that seem unrelated to anything significant, simply because the internal barrier that had been keeping distance between you has weakened. They may ask questions that go slightly deeper than usual, showing genuine curiosity about your life, your feelings, your future, in ways that feel different from their typical conversational patterns. They may find small excuses to spend more time around you, or to extend conversations that would previously have ended quickly. None of this is accidental. It is the visible edge of an internal decision that has already been made, surfacing gradually into behavior. The second thing to expect is a noticeable increase in your own intuitive experience over the coming days. Pay close attention to sudden, vivid thoughts of them that arrive with unusual clarity and refuse to be easily dismissed. Notice dreams that feel more specific, more emotionally charged than your ordinary dreaming. Notice a persistent sense of anticipation, a feeling that something is about to shift or be revealed, even if you can't point to any concrete evidence for that feeling. These intuitive signals tend to intensify specifically during the window between someone's internal decision to express something significant and the moment that expression finally becomes visible, because the emotional charge of an unspoken truth travels ahead of the words that will eventually carry it. There is also an honest, practical truth that deserves to be spoken clearly here, because encouragement without honesty is not truly useful. What has shifted on their side is real and significant, but it does not remove your own role in how this unfolds from here. If you have been closed off recently, distracted, guarded, or difficult to reach emotionally, this is the moment to soften that, even slightly. Not by forcing anything, not by chasing them down for answers, but simply by creating a little more openness in your presence, a little more availability in your attention when you're with them. The window that has opened on their side moves more easily toward its natural conclusion when it is met with receptivity rather than suspicion or emotional distance. This brings up something important about your own state of mind in the coming days, something that will significantly influence how smoothly this unfolds. It will be tempting, now that you understand something significant has shifted, to become hyper-focused on catching the exact moment it becomes visible, analyzing every message for hidden meaning, watching their every move for confirmation, trying to force clarity to arrive faster than it naturally will. This impulse is completely understandable, especially after carrying uncertainty for as long as you likely have. But acting on it works against you. Anxious watching creates a kind of pressure that most people can sense even when it isn't spoken aloud, and pressure tends to make people retreat rather than move forward, especially when what they're carrying already feels vulnerable and uncertain to them. The more grounded, patient, and calm you remain during this window, the safer it becomes for the person you love to take the step they have already decided, internally, to take. Your steadiness becomes part of the environment that allows their courage to fully develop. This is not passive waiting. It is active, intentional calm. A conscious choice to trust the momentum that has already been set into motion rather than trying to control its exact timing or force it into visibility before it's ready. You should also expect a period of visible inconsistency or nervousness from them before whatever they're preparing to express fully surfaces. This is an entirely normal part of the process, and understanding it in advance will help you interpret it correctly rather than reading it as a bad sign. A person who has just crossed the threshold from private feeling into determined intention often experiences waves of self-doubt immediately afterward, a natural response to the vulnerability of what they're preparing to do. They may seem distracted at times. They may pull back slightly, even after moving closer, only to close the distance again shortly after. They may seem like they're building towards something without quite arriving at it yet, circling the moment rather than stepping fully into it. This back and forth is not evidence that the shift wasn't real. It is simply the natural turbulence that accompanies genuine courage being gathered in real time. What is certain, regardless of how this specific unfolding proceeds, is that something has genuinely changed, and it changed recently enough that its effects are still actively rippling outward as you're hearing this. Before this internal shift, the connection between you existed largely in a space of unspoken tension. Feelings held privately on their side, uncertainty held privately on yours, an unnamed current running beneath the surface of your interactions that neither of you had fully acknowledged out loud. After this shift, that dynamic has begun to move, even if the movement is not yet visible to anyone watching from the outside. Something that was static has become active. Something that was silent has begun, quietly, to search for its voice. Now let's bring everything together, because this entire message has been building toward one essential truth, and it deserves to be spoken plainly and completely. The person you love wants you to hear this, and what that means is not that they have literally sent you this message or asked you to watch it, but that the truth they are carrying inside them, the decision they have recently and quietly made, is reaching toward you through every channel available to it in this moment. Through the subtle shifts beginning to surface in their behavior, through the intuitive signals surfacing in your own inner experience, through the persistent, undeniable pull that brought you specifically to this video, at this specific time, out of everything else you could have been doing right now. Their wanting has not yet found its full voice. But it is moving, unmistakably, steadily, in your direction. What happened recently is not something that requires you to chase it down or force it prematurely into the open. It has already been set into motion by a real, sincere, internal decision, and decisions made at this level of depth tend to follow through to their natural conclusion, given enough space and enough time to unfold at their own pace. Your role right now is not to manufacture the outcome through anxious effort. Your role is to remain genuinely open to it. Noticing the signs as they continue to surface without clinging to them desperately, staying emotionally available without becoming needy or demanding, trusting the momentum that has already begun rather than trying to control precisely when or how it will become visible. I want you to receive this message with the same quiet, growing certainty that has been building on their side over these recent days. The fact that you were drawn here, to this exact video, at this exact moment, carrying whatever question or longing led you to click, is not separate from what has been happening in their life. It is the other half of the very same unfolding event. They have been moving steadily toward the decision to finally reach for you, and you, in turn, have been moving toward a growing readiness to receive that reaching, even if neither of you has said a single word about it out loud yet. This is not coincidence. This is two people, connected by something genuinely real, converging from two different directions toward the same unspoken, long-awaited truth. So here is what I want you to hold on to, carry with you, and let settle fully into your understanding as this message comes to a close. Something important did happen. It happened recently, and its effects are still actively unfolding around you even now. The person you love crossed a threshold they had been circling for a long time, moving decisively from private hesitation into quiet, determined intention. That intention now exists inside them as real, gathering momentum, not a fantasy, not wishful thinking, but an actual internal commitment, waiting for the right moment to become visible in the world you both share. It has not disappeared back into silence, and it is very unlikely to. Decisions made with this much sincerity, built on feelings that have had this much time to deepen, have a way of following through, even when the exact timing still feels uncertain from where you're standing. Do not allow doubt to convince you that none of this applies to you, or that the shifts you felt recently in your own life were simply imagination or wishful projection. Doubt tends to grow loudest at precisely the moments when truth is closest to breaking through to the surface, because some part of the human mind instinctively resists believing that something this significant could actually, truly be unfolding in real time. But the specificity of what you've experienced, the timing of this exact message reaching you at this exact point in your life, the persistent and unshakable pull that brought you here instead of anywhere else, none of this is random. It is confirmation, carefully layered, arriving in precisely the form and at precisely the moment both of you needed it most. Use the days ahead with genuine intention. Remain open rather than guarded. Stay present and attentive rather than distracted by anxious speculation. Watch closely for the small, gradual shifts in behavior that will continue to surface, for the intuitive signs that will keep arriving as this unfolds naturally over time. Let all of these signs anchor you in calm, patient trust rather than pulling you into desperate urgency, because connections built on something genuinely real, something with real history and real depth behind it, do not need to be forced toward their conclusion. They simply need enough space and enough time to complete a movement that has already, quietly, unmistakably begun. The person you love wants you to hear this, and now, finally, you have. Something important truly did happen, recently, quietly, beneath the surface of ordinary life, and it continues, even now, to move steadily toward its full and undeniable expression. Trust what has shifted on their side. Trust what has shifted within you as you've absorbed every word of this message. The long silence that has been holding this connection carefully in place is beginning, at last, to loosen. And what has already been set into motion, by something this real and this deeply felt, does not simply fade back into nothing. It continues forward, one quiet step at a time, until the moment finally arrives when it can no longer remain unspoken.